So my original plan was that I was going to make a video that gives advice to freshmen, perhaps talk about the clubs I'm involved in, but until I have that information compiled into one beautiful list, instead I'm going to talk about something that is equally important to me, and that is my baby, my past employer, the Shedd Aquarium. I love her, and because I love her so much, I'm going to talk about my experience working there. The Shedd Aquarium is a aquarium located in the museum campus of downtown Chicago. So it's right on the lake, right next to the Adler Planetarium and the Field Museum. So very much like central to downtown Chicago. The TLDR is that I honestly had a wonderful time working there, hence why I'm so excited to make this little video about it. I think that everyone should work there if they can. And so this is a little video explaining just exactly what I did in this specific program that I worked at. This was entering my senior year in high school. So I had a little bit of experience in high school classes, but I do know that they want you to be at least 16. But nevertheless, there are lots of other opportunities to work at the Shedd if this program doesn't exactly work for you. Obviously, zoos and aquariums are having a bit of a hard time right now and in the past about, the way that the animals are treated and well-being, and that's valid. However, I just want to point out that all zoos and aquariums are under an organization called the AZA, the American Zoological Association. So, they're going to be the professionals that know exactly what type of habitat a certain animal will need. So I place a lot of trust in the AZA in determining, that the Shedd Aquarium is up to standards in terms of the way that certain animals are treated, and, they're happy, right? Additionally, I want to point out that the Shedd is so much different than a place like SeaWorld, right? The Shedd is super orientated in education rather than experience. So yes, the Shedd Aquarium does have an aquatic presentation, but the content of that presentation is really geared more towards teaching young children about the different body parts of a dolphin or just how a penguin moves, as well as pollution. So in the most current aquatic presentation that's being exhibited at the Shedd Aquarium right now, it's all about the way that certain animals see food when it's underwater and whether that food is actually food and not just trash. I'm going to start by talking about my personal experience and how I ended up working at the Shedd Aquarium. So from freshman to junior year, I started by working at the aquarium club at my school, which pretty much meant that I was getting new fish for the aquarium every once in a while, working with my team to make sure that the water was clean, doing weekly water changes and feeding the fish and all those things along those lines to make sure that the 4 aquariums at our school were happy and healthy. But my experience within Aquarium Club made me have more interest in exploring a possible role in a museum or an educational setting. So when my biology teacher prompted me to, explore these different paths, she provided a lot of links, and I had no idea that such a program would be open to high school students. But she definitely encouraged me to apply. The program that she wanted me to apply to specifically was called the Shedd Aquarium Teen Work Study Program. At the time, this was a program of about 30 students from the city of Chicago and the surrounding areas, and you would work, I think, about 8 weeks, hence the work part, but then the study part would come from an individual research project that you'd be doing before work every day or every few days. Every once in a while, I would go down and do a little bit of observation on my given animal, which in my case was clownfish. And then I presented to a whole bunch of parents, as well as other students from different student programs at the Shedd Aquarium. The application prompted me to write 2 different essays, which I believe were somewhere along the lines of, why do you want to work here? And can you explain how to talk to a child about sea stars? Thankfully, I was offered an interview. I went downtown to the Shedd Aquarium after the hours had closed, and I got to meet some of the heads of the program in this interview of sorts, rather than having, a one-on-one long conversation about why I was interested in the program. We started off with everyone that was called into the interview doing a game, and then we did a speed round of interviews. So talking about things like a problem that I had to, help solve, or perhaps why I'm interested in doing something at an aquarium rather than the Field Museum, which also has a teen study. Now, I believe that the program is actually quite exclusive. I think that my year there were around 500 people that were applying, and of course, only 30 of those people were chosen. However, I think that if you have some demonstrated interest in zoology or marine biology or environmental policy, then I think that they might, be more interested in you than just some random person who's just looking for a summer job. So the teamwork study itself was broken up into 3 different categories. At this point, I believe my program within the work study is not available anymore. At the time, the 3 programs were Shedd Ambassador, Young Naturalists or Young Nats, and the Green Gardeners. And they all had different roles within the aquarium as a whole. Now, I believe at this point, the only program that's available is the Young Nat program, and I can't really speak to it because I don't know exactly what they did, but I can certainly talk about my track, which was the Shedd Ambassador, and hopefully some of those things in the coming years will translate. So within the Shedd Ambassador program, I had 5 different roles, and we would just rotate, so we'd only spend about an hour, but sometimes a little bit longer than that at one given position. My first position that I went to was often the 4D Experience. The 4D Experience is just a 4-day movie, so we got to see all of them, but they range from National Geographic type of videos to Splash and Bubbles, which was a children's movie. And we would pretty much, as Shedd Ambassadors, stand around the outside at the corner of the gift shop and the 4D Experience and make sure that people were going to the right show. If they wanted to buy tickets, we could direct them where, as well as giving general directions because we were kind of centralized in the aquarium. So people were often interested to ask about the Stingray Touch, if that was open, or what time is the next aquatic presentation. The next of my shifts was the Wild Reef exhibit, which is located down an elevator in the main galleries portion of the shed. And honestly, this was probably my favorite position that I had. And at the time, I'd always dreaded because this was the position where I actually had to actively try to talk to people. But it was really neat because you ended up with a lot of experience. I had to stand towards the end of the exhibit, kind of squished in between the bamboo shark eggs and the bamboo shark exhibit. So this exhibit also had ornate lobsters, and then across the way were some archer fish, as well as a few other fish, which I'm completely forgetting the names of. You might be wondering, how the heck does she know what an archerfish is? But what was lovely is that during our orientation of working at the shed, all the Shedd Ambassadors were given a tour by the aquarists, which are people that are way more knowledge about marine life than we are. So they are often the ones that feed them, make sure that they're acting relatively normal, and that they're behaving the way that they would in the wild. So my next job was at the Sea Star Touch. People would come around and they were allowed to touch the sea star's limbs with 2 fingers. And that was pretty much just our job, is to communicate that to everyone who came and make sure that they washed their hands before and afterwards. Occasionally people would ask about different information, whether it's acceptable to call them starfish, it's not, as well as, what exactly are they? And do they have brains? How do they move around? How do they see? And so as a Shedd employee, we had to know all this information in order to respond to all these different guests, no matter the age. My third position was greeter, and this was probably one of the more boring activities. However, in a situation where you don't want to do anything, this was a lovely position. Essentially, all it meant was that I would stand next to the security guards and I would say, "Hello, welcome to the shed," in my best customer service voice, and occasionally give out maps to people or answer questions, or occasionally get yelled at by guests that think that the price is too expensive. P.S. It's that expensive because fish food and beluga whale food is very expensive. So my last position, and perhaps one of my other favorites, is working at the aquatic presentation. The aquarists come out and the dolphin trainers come out and they show just exactly what some of the dolphins and as well as other marine creatures can do. And I say marine creatures, but it wasn't actually limited just to those who can swim. There were also red-tailed hawks and occasionally an owl, I believe. Depending on the day and depending on the hour, there might be penguins, there might be sea lions, there might be beluga whales, there might be dolphins. It's really just kind of up to just what the animals were feeling at the time. The thing to note actually, which is quite interesting, is that all of the aquatic presentations for the animals are voluntary. So if a dolphin is, working that day and, the trainer calls it to come to the aquatic presentation and the dolphin isn't feeling it, then that's it. The dolphin just gets to chill and not do anything. Then during the show, you would just stand outside the curtain, answer questions as people pass by, and just listen in on what was going on. Before I conclude this little talk I've been giving, I thought it'd be really fun to share one of my stories from working there. Every day, you would enter in through the shipping dock. It would be wild because you'd be walking, into work, and then walking out of work would be falcons and owls, because the aquarists would be taking them outside to stretch their wings and et cetera, et cetera. So I would show up about half an hour early, and then for the first hour of work before the shed opens, all the high school students in the work study would play a game or do some sort of warm up. Sometimes it would be frisbee, other times it would just be a nice walk around outside. But one day we played sardines. Essentially, sardines is just reverse hide and seek. So everyone is looking for one person that's hidden, and then once someone finds that person who's hidden, they hide with them. But eventually it becomes a very crowded space, hence the title Sardines. So during this game, I had kind of given up. At this point, there were probably 15 minutes left of our game, and everyone seemed to have disappeared, which prompted me to think everyone had found the first hidden person, and I was just gonna lose. So rather than, wasting 15 minutes more of my time, I decided that I would go down to the polar play zone and go look at the dolphins who were swimming around casually. Again, this was before anyone was in the museum except for us. So I was down in the polar play zone, which is the underwater viewing area of the dolphin exhibit. I just started doing cartwheels and somersaults, and a whole bunch of dolphins noticed. And so at one point there were 2 that were just staring at me, so intrigued by my cartwheels. And I was living. It was the coolest thing ever. And I kept doing it, and then I tried to run to one side, run to the other side, and this dolphin was following me, and it was so cool. To conclude this little video, I would just like to say that working at the Shedd Aquarium was a blessing. And honestly, if I have the ability to work there again, I certainly will, because everyone there that I encountered was just amazing, from the students to the professional staff to corporate. Anyway, if you are a high school student looking to have an awesome job, I certainly suggest this program. I loved it so much and I want to return. So if you ever come across such a program at the Shedd Aquarium, whether it be teen work study or even any of the other programs such as the Apostle Island trips, I would go for it, because you can do nothing better with your time than work at the Shedd Aquarium. I will see you guys in a different video. All of my 5 subscribers, baby.